they delayed. That's part of the Bruce Arena thing that like apparently the fucking news that everybody's keeping so secret for some reason is going to get delayed even more because they bumped back a like Miami New England League game because of the League's Cup final.
God, I'm racking my brain for something topical to joke that Bruce did. I don't know. Bruce Arena is dating who?
Well, I was gonna say he sent an apology video for his weird psychotic episode on the airplane.
Oh, that was cool.
Bruce Arena?
He was pointing to Josie Altidore being like, that motherfucker is not real.
Omar Gonzalez.
Did fucking Andrew Farrell? That motherfucker is not real.
That's the one.
The one guy who is
the
real.
one metronome in my life. Actually, I mean, low key. Now that I think about it, when Andrew Farrell does finally stop playing, that'll be one of those things where like, yep. All right, this is inspired by the Theo Walcott news for sure. But I'm gonna be like, oh man,
that was it.
Yeah. For me, I think like the closest player that I know of off the top of my head that's my age is Sean Davis. So when Sean Davis hangs it up, I'm gonna be like, all right, guess I'm not gonna be a professional soccer player now. Guess it's over.
It all started when you watched your first Little League World Series at age 13.
Right.
And now it's a steady creep to your early to mid 30s.
Yeah, a distinct memory of watching the Little League World Series at 12 and being like, oh, right, I meant to do that.
Right.
Never got around to that. Was I playing in a Little League affiliated Little League? No. But
still could have happened. You never know.
They might have asked me.
Hey, Sally!
Well, it's episode 254 of View from 202. Due to scheduling conflicts, it's once again 3 of the 4 of us. Sam is on vacation. I just returned from a vacation.
I'm about to go on vacation.
Okay. I thought you guys might do an episode without me, but then we ended up, crashing out of the cup, so it didn't really matter. So we were able to take a sabbatical for that week, unfortunately.
It was a big, long sigh of relief once we were out of the cup.
Yeah, you guys dreaded the prospect of doing an episode without me that badly. Remember when you did that an entire summer?
Yeah,
wow.
That's a lot.
What a formative summer that was for the Red Bulls. Well, not really for the Red Bulls, but for the lore of this podcast, it was.
Not a whole lot was formed.
Yeah. But we're coming to you after 2 games in the League's Cup. The League's Cup is done for the Red Bulls, at least. We beat NYCFC, and we tie Philly and lose in penalties. Now, you may be thinking, what? That sounds like every other month of MLS action when we play these fucking guys.
Hasn't that been the situation like 4 times
Hasn't
this
that
year?
been every U.S. Open Cup for the past 7 years?
Yeah. This is not my beautiful house. What? Yeah. Lo and behold, same shit. You know what? Hats off, actually, to the organizers, because in hindsight, the only Liga MX team that we play being San Luis is really funny. And now I kind of wish I went now.
I'm glad I went for that reason.
I haven't been looking at all of the other matchups in the tournament, but just at a glance, it was like, yeah, this looks like half of this shit is just like regular stuff. Like, it's like Monterrey and Querétaro played a match in like, I don't know, fucking Sandy or something, because why not? All of it is here. It's all whatever. But how was our Leagues Cup experience? I didn't go to these games. I have an excuse this time. I was out of the state, either state, New York or New Jersey. I think it's very funny that we still beat City in this, because like, what else do you expect at this point? I didn't go to that game. You were at that game?
I was at that game.
Were you at that game?
I was not.
All right.
It was very fun to beat City.
Yeah. Is it even banter at this point? I feel like it's just sort of,
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. The ref was really weird in that game, but like, it's always fun to watch City fans just get solemnly quiet by like 12 minutes into the game.
Yeah, how did it work with it technically being neutral field? They
hadn't. That's a good point, actually. But they did have like an away section.
And they had like a police escort
in the normal area. Yeah,
that's interesting.
I guess.
Sounds like there was some handbags after the game, but
oh yeah,
it's already been well trodden territory.
Also, yeah, I mean, like, I guess we hate each other. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, the footage of the Union Square riot afterwards was heartbreaking. You know, I can't believe that the Star-Lord bobblehead himself was going to offer giving away free Star-Lord bobbleheads. And these youth, you know, they love their collectibles.
The city fans just had to storm into that Zoomies, you know.
Yeah, it's you know, I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum, but I don't get it, folks.
God, City and Zoomies is such a fucking collab waiting to happen.
I'm surprised their like Park kit wasn't like a Zoomies exclusive.
Yeah. Do you think they're mad that we scooped them on the like hip hop kit? I bet because that was sort of their unofficial theme for like the first 5 years of their existence, putting little like graffiti on everything.
The supposed hip hop birth was like a Bronx thing too.
Yeah, Sedgwick Avenue.
So, yeah,
even weirder.
Park's kit is
which is funny because they had an Only collab too, but Only, you know, has the Parks collab before.
I think it was a missed opportunity to have a partnership with the Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings. that there you go, folks. That is the funniest agency I could think of off the top of my head. Oath. You know, that maybe Red Bulls would do that next year.
I was looking at those Ebbett Fields flannel hats for like the IRT, and we should do like an IRT, despite, you know, being on the path.
We could do an H&M, Hudson and Manhattan. That's the original name of the path. That would be pretty sick.
That would be pretty sick.
I think they had a team way back in the day.
That'd be, yeah, like an old heritage looking.
Because the Hudson and Manhattan Railroad is low-key, like, very old. It might be younger than the IND, which is one of the New York 3 railroads. So that could be something to look into, an idea to steal. But yeah,
we here at 202 don't believe in intellectual property. So if you want to clip that and use that,
definitely.
Yeah,
this is why we don't have a Patreon, among other reasons.
So if the fans want to clip our stuff and post them on TikTok or whatever,
we are too lazy.
But in the meantime, we do have that new hip hop kit, which
are we gonna wear it?
I think it's.
Did we wear it at either game?
No, we're premiering it against the Miami game. I
think that was kind
maybe everyone's premiering their third kit against Miami this season is the plan. But it's not like, I don't think it's great, but I think it's good. You know,
I think it's like
now, better than like bad.
We've had so many warm-ups, special warm-ups over the last few years. Most of them are league-wide initiatives. That when I see photos of the players in it, I've subconsciously been like, oh yeah, it's another warm-up.
Yeah, right.
Like, it hasn't hit me that we're going to wear that on the field. I think if the script were a little smaller, it might look cooler, but maybe that defeats
also,
the
they picked like, I don't know, different words in like hip-hop, rap, Bronx.
Oh yeah, it should be
1973.
That's
it feels
the
like
other
lyrics
thing.
or something.
I haven't looked at it long enough to read it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a good point. It honestly should have been
much like the glitch kit. I liked the design more when it was just an abstraction before I looked closer and saw that it was actual words.
Yeah.
So
that's true. But yeah, I forgot that we announced that. Were there more City fans like dispersed generally around the general seating of the stadium?
I
guess that's kind of been a thing.
Yeah, but it was also just
too.
not that attended.
Yeah, it didn't look like a big crowd.
So
yeah, it must be
as was pointed out, I believe. But
well, I guess there was a U.S. Open Cup game in like, gosh, was it like 2017 or 2018? Yeah, it must have been 2016 or 17. That was probably less attended than this. But other than that, this is probably the least attended derby. It's also just very odd to play your rivals. I mean, maybe we've already joked about it a bit, but maybe I'm going to dive into it more here. I think it deserves more scorn. Just like how silly it is that I really have just played the same row of teams that we always do. Like, I've been a hater of, or a skeptic of Leagues Cup whenever it was announced, like 15 years ago, whatever at this point. But, when we played San Luis, I was like, yeah, all right,
nice little novelty,
what else am I going to do? Turns out I was going to go home and wash my dishes instead. But, rhetorically, what else was I going to do?
That was me going to San Luis.
Yeah. But then it's like, now that we've had this run, it just feels really ridiculous how many games there were at between the same league opponents, and it was all in the U.S. Like, I do think having some sort of home and home, like say the Champions League, adds some gravity to the situation. I'll just refer. You've probably seen the tweet that's made the rounds. Where it's like, oh, imagine if England and Spain just like held a tournament randomly, like La Liga and the Premier League held a tournament and just like took a month off and decided it was just a big deal as a Champions League. It's like, it doesn't hold water for me. It's why am I supposed to care about this matchup with City and Philly as much as I do for a league game at this point?
It came into focus more in the later rounds, or I guess I shouldn't be using past tense because the final still hasn't happened, but it was coming into focus a little bit more as you came along that, the Champions League spots were at stake. And then, it kind of, illustrated the fact that, which I had mentioned on the last episode, that, there was talks of a like CONCACAF Europa League, and I slightly misspoke on that because what's actually going on, and they're actually in place already with Leagues Cup, is that that CONCACAF has now broken down Champions League qualification into these regions. That the Caribbean Cup now qualifies a few teams for Champions League. Central American Cup qualifies a few teams for Champions League, and now they're considering Leagues Cup as like North America, as US, Mexico, Canada's regional cup. But even if that's a more plausible like kind of basis for this tournament existing. But like you were just saying, Brit, having it all in the US, all supposedly neutral with, this weird like kind of ad hoc scheduling and stuff, it's just pretty cheap if you actually expect it to be treated like an official tournament. Because to me, outside of the Champions League spots at stake, they feel like friendlies to me.
Yeah.
The way they're being talked about and like really, I'll just use the slur soy-faced about by a lot of the kind of media scene is just very friendly like to me. Like these are just little showcase exhibitions, and especially the Messi factor has exacerbated that even more. Like, so.
Yeah. And it's the one fixture I keep on getting fixated on. I'm sure there are other ones that fit, but like Monterrey Querétaro in a random MLS stadium.
Right.
That's pure friendly territory.
Yeah.
It's also going on. It fits that at the same time, as we discussed on the last episode, the European friendly model seems to have shifted from playing MLS teams, although I think that still happened a couple times this year, to just like having Premier League teams play each other here. And so like having two Liga MX teams do that here also just feels like it's a continuation of that. And that's been a thing that's happened a couple. I know Houston in particular tends to host it, like years ago would already be hosting Liga MX teams already. So it all just feels kind of like whatever. But I'll still take the opportunity to laugh at City, and as we'll get to later, I don't want to elide the fact that we did lose to Philly again, like, or in penalties. It's not to be like, avoid any sort of smack talk or bragging rights, but I don't know. Is there anything else about this NYC game? It was a penalty from Omir. Was there anything compelling about this? Was there anything noteworthy other than City is having a worse time than we are, which is very funny?
No, I think that's. Well, yeah.
Gee, thanks, Mr. Correspondent.
Hey, yeah, that works. So.
Yeah, I mean, still. Like,
But yeah, I mean, like, I guess it's like been noticeable to me during this tournament that the refereeing is just obviously.
who even
very,
are the referees just randos?
It
or
seems
are
like for every one of our matches, it seems like they've been from Mexico.
Huh. Interesting.
So it's been a very different style of like game to watch, which I have, think is like maybe.
I've never given a shit about referees nearly as much as like the common man, I suppose. Like, it's never been something I've tracked. I've outside of the guys who like look distinctive and have had big moments or whatever. I don't really like know who they are.
Right.
Like,
Well, yeah, it's more, but like you could tell that the style of refereeing maybe between the two organizations that organize the refs for Liga MX and MLS, like it changes how the game is like played in front of you a little bit too.
I've never seen a league in any sport where people think the refs are good.
Right.
Like,
Well, it's not like a good or bad thing. It's just
no,
like,
I get what you're saying, but I'm just kind of getting on my soapbox about refereeing since it came up.
My interest in referees is Ted Uncle doing a funny squat,
right?
Memorable, and Fotis Pazakos just kind of
doing
Fotis Pazakos things.
Ernie Constantine not being fit,
and Officer
Penso. That's the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
like,
and Geiger being a former math teacher. These are the main facts.
None of this has anything to do with their actual officiating.
No,
except for Ernie. Ernie needs to shave up, but.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, then Philly. I mean, I have to say, so I was following this from a distance, and I was on my trip out in the relative wilderness, and happy to see that we beat City. I wasn't able to watch it live, but I was checking the scores, and then the news came in that like we were going to play in Philly again, and I was like, oh, thank God I'm out here, because like the concept of fucking going down to that place again it was immediately a non-starter.
We would have gotten rained out the first night.
Right, yeah, on a Monday, right?
Which that came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
like I think even in Philly, they weren't even expecting like a storm that night. And then
one of the players was posting that day being like, haha, they're going to cancel this because of the weather. And then they posted like the picture of the storm immediately afterwards being like, okay, never mind.
What are you going to do? Stab me?
Yeah.
There's been a good updated version of that out there. I'll leave that to people to find. But yeah, so we played Philly again. We scored a nice little goal. Let's get out the tap-in meter. I've got it somewhere around here, and we can chalk one up
back
onto the tap-in meter.
Yep.
Two striker setup. Dante Van Zier and wait, was it Dante?
No, it was Omir.
It was Omir.
Omir and Elias.
Yeah, and Omir slid it across to Elias. You guys were telling me that we were getting that kind of play multiple times against Philly.
Yeah, especially in the first half. Philly was just, I wouldn't say discombobulated in the back. I think it was just a byproduct of how they play, which we should be pretty familiar with, where the fullbacks are just pushing up really hard, and there was just never really any alignment with the rest of the defensive line, and they were just letting us hit those long balls wide and have breakouts, just kind of in waves through the first half. But I guess just, to be as simple of a segue as possible, in the second half, that pretty much reversed, and it became Philly just kind of holding possession and just putting the team under siege. And, this game, I guess if you want to just be as big picture as possible about it, it was kind of a thing where it was a nice illustration of what a kind of a double-edged sword it can be for both these teams. I mean, it's just a well-worn cliche by this point that Red Bulls and Philly play pretty similar tactical style and are going for pretty much the same thing club building wise. And it's a situation where both teams, and Steve Cangelosi was kind of using this as his sort of kind of big picture before the game, that you need to score early to play this way. You need to score early So you can get the other team, pushing and making mistakes on their end that you can pounce on. So you can get transition moments. And that's been, the story of this team and why it's struggled most of the time when it has in the last few years. But this game was an example of when you do get an early first goal, you can also find yourself in the reverse situation where you now have to, unless you want to score more goals, which tough ask for this team of recent, but generally you're going to have to defend for the next 80 minutes. And your options with the way this team plays, with the way the Red Bulls play, is you can either keep pressing for 80 minutes, which is not entirely practical and leaves you with the incredibly thin margins of error that Struber often went ahead with. And then you can also just kind of sit back and push your lines back and not emphasize pressing as much. And then you've just kind of muddled your game plan, and the other team can sort of get the comfort that the whole basis of your tactics is to eliminate. So yeah, kind of a, just catch-22 of the way this team plays. And, I guess just added to the list of reasons why playing this way in a vacuum might not be the best long-term identity for this club, but that's for people above our pay grade, I guess.
So did you get the sense that we just ran out of stamina for pressing, or that fairly early on more of a choice was made to pack it up a little bit more and we just weren't able to weather the storm?
Well, there was a formation switch, wasn't there? Where
at some point we switched to 3.
Right.
Yeah, but it's also, I think it's a little bit of both
which the 3 in the back is like, especially when Struber was using it the last few years, was kind of a hedge and kind of a way to just crowd numbers as opposed to having a specific tactical agenda. But
yeah, and I think Philly also just adjusted pretty well, probably at the half to how we were playing. I think, like you were saying, it's a tale of two halves in that game where, we really should have put away more chances in the first half, but so should Philly have in the second half. And I think that the draw was deserved, but maybe the score wasn't as deserved. It should have been like a 3-2 or a 2-2 or a 3-3 maybe.
Yeah, well, I guess it was kind of a preview of that Philly just got ripped apart by
Miami,
by Inter Miami in the next game. So,
although pretty suspect the way that they looked, how much they're giving up.
I guess, but I think that can be a pretty instructive, example of the margins between Messi and Busquets or whatever breaking open Philly and our guys, as much as we love them, breaking open Philly. So
is it just me, or have we conceded a unusual amount of set piece headers to Philly in the last years? It's not something I usually think of this era of the Red Bulls being particularly vulnerable to, but it seems like Philly has put away more than a few headers against us, and I don't have an obvious reason for that.
I'm thinking about, was that Glesnes goal was a volley, right? I'm thinking they do a lot of set pieces, at least against us, maybe.
That was also, though, the season or seasons where we were getting scored on off the second ball from a set piece every other week.
Yeah, that's also true.
What was it Santos who scored that late equalizer in 2021, I think? Too, that I was thinking about that game recently, actually, just on the subject of like Philly in the last 5 years, because Jim Curtin then hopped on the mic to say that like we were talking a lot of shit, and that it was funny because they keep beating us after beating us in penalties, and it's, I don't know, it's sort of a funny comment because it's like, seems like he doth protest a little too much, but also like, we're not doing great against anyone really, but particularly Philly, which makes sense because like when a team that's been doing pretty well over the last 5 years plays a team that's doing pretty mid over the last 5 years, it makes sense that one would continually overperform or outperform them. And which is kind of something that, for instance, we did to DC from like 2015 to like, arguably still now, I don't know, but particularly like 2019, I would say. But it got some folks talking about like whether we're a rival with Philly or anything. And my line on this has sort of always been that for better and for worse, I still don't think we're like proper rivals with them in a way. And right now it's certainly for worse. Like, want to be clear that like this is to our detriment that we're not rivals with them, because we just have not been competitive with them in the last couple of years, which is to say, like, there's still been very few times where both of us have been good. When we were at our peak, they were like very like mid-table type of team that like could maybe like harass us a bit in the Open Cup, but the context of that was always that we were pushing for the Shield in the league or like making a Champions League run. So if they like sniped us in an Open Cup run or something, it was a little bit of a pestering. And also it was a very clear pecking order at that sort of time. I'm talking like the 15 to like 18, 19 time where like our rivals were very much like City for local reasons, and then later actual competitive reasons, and then Atlanta for the big competitive reasons. Philly was solidly second tier at best beyond that, kind of with DC, who had the historic thing but had not been competing at all. Since then, we've not been able to beat them. But bringing it back to that game I was remembering with that Santos equalizer, that is actually the game that I get closest with saying that like it was a game where I was thinking ahead of time both of these teams might have something going, or like thinking that the Red Bulls might have something going, a little bit of a project going, and then it's all foiled by Philly. Because that game kind of feels like one of the last times that Struber actually tried to like do the diamond midfield and try to score. It really feels like after that week of that summer, of that first Struber summer, that he was like, all right, that's it. I'm not trying to like have these guys actually play anymore. Like, he vowed to never try to score a goal again, and it feels like we've still not crawled out of that. Whereas like that, and then the playoff game that year was also like the last minute Glesnes winner, which was like pretty brutal. But the hope for that postseason was still sort of that we would like maybe scrape things out and like play real ugly and have a funny little cup run by like having a bunch of 1-0 or 0-0 penalty wins. So when Philly made it so that didn't happen, it was heartbreaking in the moment with the way the game happened, but it was not like this was our year. We were like, what, 6 seed or something, 5 seed or something. So that's my soapbox on the rivalry thing, and I think it just kind of speaks to the general doldrums of the situation. So like, I don't know, I guess Curtin needs to hype his guys up somehow, because in a funny way they also haven't had much going for them. Like, beating up on us has kind of been their only sort of
trophy
achievement in this last couple years. So if it makes them feel better, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the window's kind of closed on being able to just begrudgingly respect Philly, because now it does seem like they've pretty much hit the wall and their project is seeing its best days. Yeah.
I would cite the, you're nothing special, we lose every week. But it's more like you're nothing special, we draw every week. So there you go.
Yeah, I was gonna say it feels more petty on their side if they wanted to consider it a rivalry, if anything, just for like, oh yeah, we were just better than you all this time, but like it's on their terms a little bit.
It's like, yeah, dude, we've kind of been bad. Yeah, no shit. Well, rumor has it the Red Bulls signed a player, and actually I've been trying to Google it to remember his name, and when I Googled it, let's see, it was when I Googled Red Bulls signing, it comes up with Dante Van Zier and a really funny older one that some older Red Bulls fans might remember. Red Bulls near. Oh wait, no, that's a new one. But okay, then you go to Transfermarkt, and our most recent signings on Transfermarkt are Dante Van Zier, Corey Burke, and Tyler Pasher. Who's a name that some older Red Bulls fans might remember. Pache, yeah,
get it
right. But yeah, it's we did sign someone, right? I legitimately cannot find this information.
His name
is it not on like the Red Bull Newswire?
Transaction news: New York Red Bulls 2 signed forward Oladayo Thomas.
So, our new friend Jorge Cabezas Hurtado, who supposedly, assuming it's not a Sid Finch like hoax, supposedly he has played for, or he got his start at Real Cartagena in Colombia, and then he did so well. He scored an entire 4 goals in 25 appearances, did so well that Watford made him the centerpiece of their team. No, actually, they just signed him and loaned him back to Colombia for like a year where he's done nothing. And now they're going to loan him to the New York Red Bulls, who always know how to capture lightning in a barrel with a late season loan striker, as we know through the years. Always works.
I did have hope for Omer Damari.
I was going to just mention Omer Damari.
I had hope for Samuel Tete.
Whoa! Wow, man, that's a fucking pull.
Of course, we had hope for Mohamed Keita.
Then that delivered. But the Samuel Tete is legitimately a name that this older Red Bulls fan did not remember. So chalk that up. Honestly, in hindsight, Omer Damari kind of legendary. Final appearance for the club when he got red carded in stoppage time.
Right.
Because then it was kind of like, I just still distinctly remember watching that and being like, oh no, well, I guess that's fine. Because it was the first leg and it's like, you're probably not going to play next game anyway. It's not really that big a deal. So I don't, what is with this quantity over quality move we're going all the time?
Yeah, that is a good point. I had never really thought about it that way because, I mean, our main framing, I think, just as a group here on the signings this summer and a little bit before has just been that they're like, in parts of the field where we don't need help or they're not the areas of need and that are still being ignored for some reason. But then the way you put it just there, Brett, is actually interesting where, it does seem like we're just signing a lot of just flyers and bets. When, I don't know, it feels like we could be doing better by putting a little bit more resources towards just making a few big swings.
Right. And I feel like also when we sign all these guys, it's unclear how much time they should be given on the field. So then it's unclear to like really evaluate them in some ways, Like Alias Manuel, like was he signed to be a like starting guy? It's still unclear. He's worth like $1 million or $2 million. And same with, this guy is presumably more of a depth signing. I sort of worry that maybe it's a reflection of like a lingering attitude that Struber seemed to have, which is that strikers are mostly there to run around as hard as they can for about 55 minutes. And that's why you need a whole stable of them because they're really just sort of like tanks of energy that you deplete and throw away.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing too. The way you just put it where it's like, a guy like Manuel costs like, $1.52 million to sign permanently. And, this Hurtado guy he's just going to be a half season loan. There's not even a mention of an option to sign him permanently. So best of luck, kid. But, some of these other permanent signings that are costing like $1 or $2 million, it's just like for players at that level, you can get those players for essentially free in this country, on this continent or whatever. That's just such a weird strategy to focus on for me. Just tons of incremental, low level signings like that, as opposed to just, picking up, like I said, picking up your talent essentially off the street the way you can in this country by just, knowing what you want scouting wise, which this club's honestly done fairly decent at over the years. But this external transfer strategy of just signing all of these, just risky bets for not insignificant amounts of money feels like, just way more trouble than it's worth. And the proof is in the pudding that, team has just been extremely mid for 5 years now.
Yeah. And it's also different from our trialist period where we were like trialing guys like, Kemar Lawrence or loaning guys like Amir, where, it was still sort of like trying to sign guys or deeper cuts, but it wasn't like committing this weirdly intermediate amount of money like you're saying. What are you saying, Peaches?
Well, yeah, I was going to say that, following a very quantity driven like transfer season like Chelsea, like there's kind of hype behind all the amount of players. I mean, I feel like we used to have players when we signed them that had like a little bit of youth hype behind them, but that kind of itself is maybe
although part of it I think is like, there's just so many players now, like who doesn't have youth hype behind them or something.
Exactly. Everybody's signing youth hype now. They're making the whole plane out of the black box now. Red Bull is not novel, you know. So
that just reminds me of the rumor that Caden Clark almost very nearly went back to Colorado on a loan, which would have been hilarious.
Did he end up going to Europe?
I don't know.
He's technically just hanging out at Leipzig. So
They might terminate his contract at Leipzig, which is... Oof.
I mean, a good walking example of how the team has brought guys in off the street, so to speak, for better and for worse, is that we're still playing Tom Barlow a lot.
Right.
And as we've said on this show, we don't want to beat up on the guy a little bit, but like, why? Especially now that we're getting real close to like, true like lost season vibes. Although it's also, here's another gripe about the League's Cup is that like we've got like a solid collection of results here, but nothing has changed in the table. Because like I'm like, oh, maybe we should look at the table now because it's low key August now, and like it's less hypothetical about where we could be, but like there's still a lot to play. But for good measure, we are in 11th place right now, 26 points. The 9th place team is DC United.
As Jim Curtin said, 23rd place or whatever.
Yeah.
And as I said on Twitter, I have to respect that he uses the full Shield rankings and, frames it as the whole league, because I think, it does let teams off a little bit.
That's true.
They're having a bad season or a terrible season, and they can still say like 9th or 8th place in the conference.
That's a good point. Yeah, fucking hell. Well, we're comparatively we're 4 points out of a playoff spot, 9th place, which is another thing that we've complained about already, so we don't need to beat that dead horse again. There's 23 matches played, so we've got 11 left, right? So that's 33 points on the table. My stance throughout this season, or ever since Struber got fired and Troy's form in the league, which has still been decent despite all of this, is that like, we'll probably get above the line. But maybe to add a little bit of tension, a little bit of stakes into the end of this season, it is sort of the time where it's time to prove that. We actually got to do it. We've been slowly like moving up from the absolute cellar that we were. So it's not been nothing, but it's still kind of been limited amount of actual movement in the table. I mean, we've got two other teams who are on 26 points with us. Granted, City has played one more game than we have. But this is potentially a stretch to actually prove that we can get up into that next year. Our next two games are this Sunday, DC United, and then Saturday, the 26th, is Inter Miami, the big boondoggle game. So DC, still coached by Wayne Rooney, as funny as that is
which Wayne Rooney, and I didn't realize until I heard that he's being interviewed for some other job. Carl Robinson, former Red Bull, is his assistant.
Oh, wow.
That's so funny.
So Carl Robinson is coaching that team.
Yeah, read between the lines.
Man, I forgot that. So DC's elimination from the League's Cup was they lost to Philadelphia on penalties. Although I guess, wait, did they still make it out of the group? Who gives a shit? So their squad, Christian Benteke plays for them. Remember that?
There's a guy.
Yamil Assad.
I'd rather have that Belgian, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, does it even really feel like it matters who's on a MLS
DC team or any team?
Any MLS team. Yeah, I don't know. Like, don't know.
I don't know most of the guys. That's
To
be fair, the only teams I would know the guys is like DC or New England.
Junior Urso left and came back, and I never realized that he left.
And Maxi Morales, same thing apparently.
Right. Although surely, can he even run anymore? That's ridiculous. So DC. Oh wow, Chris Durkin. Chris Durkin's only 23 still. All right. I feel less. I was expecting to be, feeling older than that. But 23, that's still pretty young.
Ravel Morrison's 30.
Sick. He's still going.
Yeah.
Even though Theo's hung it up. He's not with DC anymore, though. So what's the fucking point?
Ravel?
Yeah.
Ravel's still there.
Oh, I thought he left.
I think he's not playing much, but
I thought there were issues.
he's still listed.
All right. Well, there is hope then. Sunday night game. Bit unusual, but...
Thought we were done with that. I thought there was a lot of fanfare about how that was over, but
yeah,
I'm glad they're sticking to the 95% Saturday night schedule and then diluting it a little bit.
Right.
That's nice. That's a nice touch.
Are they doing Monday Night Messi?
Who fucking knows?
I don't know. Who cares?
I don't think anybody knows what anybody's doing anymore.
I will say, well, you just said the M word, that as I was saying before we hit play or record, I do feel like I've been sort of karmically or anti-karmically punished in a way here. I don't know. I canceled my season ticket, which is the right thing to do. I made a moral stand, and then now everyone's selling their shit for like $600. And I don't know. I did everything perfect, and they still come and get me, right?
Well, I think, I did everything right, and they still sold their tickets.
Yeah. This is what I get for sort of scheming my way into MLS Season Pass on Apple TV.
I think there's probably a longer karmic consequence to all of it than,
Yeah, it will be revealed. Luna agrees with me.
Yeah. She's
It's
trying to
so unfair.
get into the couch cushions, I think, of
Just trying to raise money to buy her own Messi ticket.
tickets, yeah. Luna, there's no change in the couch. I don't have any change.
So I guess I'll say, really, it's far too dramatic to be like must win, because must we win? But
for the very small bar that's been set for this season,
right?
It is getting to must win territory.
It's time to shit or get off the pot. You know what I mean?
like the pause there. I don't think we even needed the get off the pot part. It's time to shit, you guys. That should be an option on Football Manager as like your pregame pet talk. Guys, it's time to shit. Like, let's get real.
Sounds like something that like Paul Verhoeven would say to the set and like not realize it doesn't really
it's
work.
not really a phrase.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on DC? Any other thoughts about Hurtado?
Oh, I guess this is the first year in a row that we're not going to be attending this fixture for Peaches and I guess. Oh no, it's not in DC, so
it's
we're
at
not.
home.
Yeah, it's at home.
So who cares? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in Harrison. Fucking boring.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna go back to Buzzard Point.
I still have never been. I'll go.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I don't know.
If that same Airbnb is available, I'd be down to go back there.
Yeah,
I know which room I'm trying to take again.
Yeah, it was kind of sick. But I think you kind of summed it up, Brit, that it is, we're as much as we're in the euphoria of Leagues Cup, as much as that kind of was a palate cleanser. I think we're now in the playoff stretch all of a sudden, and I don't think. I don't think the games are as casual anymore. I don't think the games are in as much of a kind of beta mode as we've been allowed to kind of proceed with since Lassane took over. I think now it is time to buckle down and get results. Time to shit. It's time to buckle down and get results whatever way possible. So we will see how that manifests for this team starting soon.
This is what happens when you get your roughage from eating so much salad over the year.
Yep.
It's time to shit. And it's interesting. There was didn't Fabrizio Romano post a managerial rumor?
Yeah, that was Strange.
So who knows? But interesting that somebody somewhere gave him something that indicates thought about next year.
Yeah,
but
might not even be from inside the Red Bull office. Probably not even from inside the Red Bull office. But at least it's out there in the ecosystem.
We might at least just be able to focus on the next couple months as a discrete period of time where we have hope, some sort of bar of achievement and see what we can do with this group. But
with our head manager, Joao Inglewood.
Wow.
Joao Tarzana.
Joao Fresno.
Oh, right. Because his name is Sacramento. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Joao Stockton.
Yeah. Joao Kenyatta Flintridge. That's actually a good one. That's a guy somewhere.
Yeah, Joao Kenyatta Flintridge. Yeah. That's the guy who's trying to stay 45 forever or whatever.
I was gonna say that's the guy who has the B segment on NPR Planet Money this morning. All right, with that, we'll see you next time.
¿Sabes?